Dear friends, how do you survive the wilderness? For the last few months, we've been looking at how to survive these difficult times that come into our lives, all of us, in fact. We've been looking at David's confessions recorded in Psalm 63, and he was sharing with us how he survived this time of suffering, the season of trials. He provides in his psalm the guidelines to how we should survive, how we should go through this time of wilderness. So let's examine the last of the 5 guidelines that will actually help us to survive this wilderness experience. When we go through the wilderness, we ought to be asking, what can we expect from the wilderness? What can we expect from this time, the season of suffering and trials? What outcome should we expect to see when we go through this wilderness experience? When we come out of it, what kind of changes can we look forward to seeing in ourselves? David says in Psalm 63, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read verse 8 through 11. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me. They who seek my life will be destroyed. They will go down to the depth of the earth. They will be given over to the sword and become food for jackals. But the king will rejoice in God. All who swear by God's name will praise him, while the mouths of liars will be silenced. The word cling, David says here, I will cling to you. My soul clings to you. The word cling here is a very, very strong expression. It means that he is desperately holding on to God. It means David is holding on to God with everything that he's got. And he's depending on him. He's solely depending on God. My soul clings to you. You see, when someone goes through this extreme time of suffering, loneliness, and pain, and throughout this entire process, if he seeks God, fixes his eyes on the power and the glory of God, solely concentrates on God, and remembers how God has been good to him, like we've examined for the last few months, as long as he does that throughout this entire time, throughout the entire time of his wilderness experience, he will come out. He will come out as a person that can no longer live without God. You see, there's 2 different ways to go through wilderness. One person will go through it blaming God, just complaining, getting depressed, depending on himself, building up this bitterness. So when you come out of the wilderness, there's nothing to be gained. On the other hand, as you're going through this time of wilderness, you're seeking after God. You know, as David said, I seek you. I seek after you. My soul thirsts for you. You see, the whole purpose of this wilderness is for us to really seek after God. So as you're going through this time of wilderness, you're seeking after God, and you're just committed to see the power and the glory of God, the beauty of God, how mighty he is, how faithful he is, how beautiful he is. And you're lifting up your hands towards God. In other words, you're concentrating on him. And you remember the goodness of God. As long as you do that, as you go through this time of wilderness, you're not going to come out bitter. You're not going to come out all hurt and scarred. But you're going to come out as a refined gold. You're going to come out as someone that's disciplined by God, as someone that has been refined by God, someone who clings on God, someone who depends on God, someone who cannot live without God. That's the outcome. This is exactly the transformation that David has undergone through the wilderness, he learned to be a person who cannot live without God. If we look at Psalm 23, we can actually vividly see this clear shift in the attitude of the psalmist towards God as he enters into the time of trials. Psalm 23, verses 1 through 3 reads, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake." What we can see here is the psalmist, David, he talks about the Lord in the third person perspective. The Lord, he is my shepherd. He makes me lie down. He leads me. He restores my soul. He guides me. Third person. There's actually nothing wrong with this, but I'm saying that when we go through this time of wilderness, our relationship, our fellowship with God becomes much more real. It becomes much more intimate. It becomes much more sincere. And therefore, we feel so much closer to God. And we can see this. We can see this change as this psalmist enters into the time of difficulty. Let me continue to read from verse 4 all the way to 5. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows." You see, when he was going through this time of green pastures and still waters and God trying to lay him down on green pastures and all that, he expresses his faith towards God. He is my good shepherd and he restores my soul. But when you actually enter into this time of the shadow of the valley of the shadow of death, God doesn't just become. God is no longer just a person, a God that's standing outside your life, but he becomes your God. You are with me. I fear no evil. As he enters into the valley of the shadow of death, he talks about God in the second person perspective. You see? David's closeness to God is evident here. It's clear. He's not just talking about God that he read about somewhere. David is not simply talking about God, the idea of God, the theology of God. David is now talking about his God. You're my God, Lord. You're my God. You see, dear friends, the gift that wilderness experience brings to our lives is the genuine realization that God is our God. Not just God of my family, the God of my country, the God of the world. There's nothing wrong with that. All those things are true. But when God becomes my God, that usually happens. That usually takes place. That change usually takes place when you're going through the time of difficulty, when you're going through the time of wilderness. Yes, in the wilderness, God becomes my God. That's when you become so close to God. You get so close to God, you become intimate and you depend on Him. You depend on Him. And in today's passage, David says, you know what? My soul clings to you. I depend on you. Dear friends, if you're going through the time of difficulty, I want us to be reminded, and I want to encourage you that we should remember, we should know that this will be the season in our lives that God becomes our God. This is a season that we will learn to fear Him. This is a season that we will learn to depend on Him. This is a season that our theology, our knowledge of God grows. This is going to be just a time of growth for us. When you're going through this time of wilderness, this is a time of growth. This is a place in our lives where we learn to be dedicated to Him. What can we expect from the wilderness? Expect God. God coming into our lives.